Hello Hyperboreans! Dave here, developer of the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT, and I thought I would do just a really quick video showing how to run combat in the system to make things easier for our early beta testers. This video probably will just go away after the beta is gone and we go live. I might even do something a little more polished. This is just a quick and dirty one to get folks started. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about the setup here. You can see I've got a quick battle setup, but I'm actually going to go into my system configuration to show you a few things. So first of all, we want to look at the map modules. Now I've got a ton of modules installed, but I've only got a few enabled in my test system. The Dice So Nice and the dice tray, that just gives us some nice dice functionality like animated 3D dice. That's what Dice So Nice does. And the dice tray is in the lower right corner of the chat. We'll see that shortly. Here's the compendium, which adds content for Hyperborea. The combat utility belt, though, this one's super important. I would highly recommend installing this. What this does is it actually lets us set up custom conditions for the combat actions being declared late in the actual game. So I'll show you how that works in a little bit. So I just wanted to point these out. Combat utility belt to me is really important as an add-on to the Hyperborea system, and it's free, so it's it's no big deal to get it installed. Okay, once you get this installed, we have to go into the settings, and we're going to go into combat utility belt, and we need to check this box here, enable enhanced conditions. If I remember correctly, this is not checked by default, so you need to check that and click Save Changes. What that gives you is this Condition Lab button down here, which we will go into in a little bit. But before we move on, I'm going to look at the Hyperborea 3rd edition settings. So these are settings that I have built into the system to hopefully make your lives a little easier, GM's lives a little easier. What I've got, first of all, is debug messages are turned on by default. Now that's not like pop-ups on the screen or anything like that. That's in the browser log. So if I open up my the browser console here, a lot of these are debug messages. If I uncheck this box, it'll cut down a lot on what's going into the console. As far as I can tell, it doesn't really affect performance of the application or anything, and it helps me as a developer to debug stuff. So I left that enabled. I'll probably disable that when we go to version 1 public release. Races, this actually is used to populate the drop-down box in the character sheet. So if you ever homebrew any additional races, just add them to this list and click Save Changes, and it'll become part of the drop-down list of the character sheet. Languages, this is actually currently not used, but my intention is to create a similar type of drop-down selection type of thing for the character sheet. Just don't have that developed yet, and it's not going to be part of version 1. This is for a later enhancement. Character classes, another drop-down in the character sheet. Again, if you wanted to add a custom class, just add it to this list, click Save Changes, and that'll be in your character sheet. And I'll show you both of those in just a second. Actually, I sort of talk about these in my how-to videos on creating characters of different classes, so you'll see them in there, so I may not go over it. Finally, this auto-calculate armor class, I have this enabled by default. You can disable this if you want. There are certain complex scenarios where the armor class is calculated incorrectly, and then it's going to be more of a hassle than it's worth. That's a bigger conversation for now, especially at lower levels, and probably 95% of use cases, leaving this checked is just fine, and it does allow you to auto-calculate armor class based on the equipment that your character is wearing. So I'm going to leave that on for now. But those are the settings we've got for the Hyperborea 3rd edition, and these are also the default settings for a new install. So if you go into yours, you should see it just like this. And then the combat utility belt, once you add that, you want to check this box for enable enhanced conditions, okay? And then be sure to save changes. All right, now I'm going to close that. So this condition lab, this is the thing that the combat utility belt adds. And what this does is it takes all the token conditions and it allows you to add new ones. So what I've done, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here, and I've added melee, missile, magic, and move. These are the combat actions that I was talking about. So when you're doing action declaration in combat, what I do is I can have my players actually right-click their token and add one of these as a condition to their token, so we all know what their action is going to be in combat. And these 4 icons are included with the installation. So they are under the Assets folder in your Hyperborea system folder. I'm not necessarily going to get into where that is exactly because I'm on a Mac and I know a lot of people are on Windows and it's just going to look different. So hopefully if you're installing Foundry in your own system, in your own laptop or computer, whatever, and running it locally, you'll know where to find that. And in Forge VTT, for example, these are going to be in a different folder. So that's kind of out of the scope for this video. But just suffice to say, you could also upload your own icons if you wanted. Like I said, I did include these in the package, so you can find them in the assets folder. Anyways, so you just create. All you do is click Add Row, and then you give it your condition. And I could even say, let's just do one and call it Other, right? And then I want to change the icon here. So I'm going to click on this, and then I don't even know if I probably don't have an Other, but I could just find something, right? Oh, let's just do pill. I don't even know. And then I've got that, and it's that simple. It just creates a new effect. So or condition. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. We don't care about this. I'm going to go ahead and save my mapping. I've got those 4 there. I just want to make sure I didn't accidentally do anything there. And now I've got it. And so what that does, I'll just show you. When you right-click a token, you go to your conditions. That's what this icon is, conditions. There's my 4 custom conditions. So if I'm going to declare melee, I'll just click the sword, for example. But we'll go into that later. Okay, so that's the modules installed. That's the configurations of the modules, with the condition lab specifically and the Hyperborea configuration settings. That gets us through all the basic stuff. So now let's look at the actual agents, the actors involved in this combat. So Alaric, he's a scout, so a thief subclass. He's got a number of abilities here. I pulled all these out of my compendium, so it's all built in, all nice and clean and everything. You can see he's got his modifiers here. He's a 3rd level, which means he's got a fighting ability of 2. He actually has a +1 short bow equipped, and he's got +1 studded armor. And so that, instead of studded armor, which has an AC of 6, what we do is we edit, when we create +1 armor, just change the armor class to be what it is going to become. I'm not going to say 6 - 1, I'm just going to say it's got an AC of 5, and that's what will be assigned to my character class. So then you can see my AC is 4, and that's being automatically calculated. If I unequip this by clicking the t-shirt, you see my armor class becomes 8. Re-equip the armor, it becomes 4. I go into this in the character creation video, so I'm not going to go any more on that. So suffice to say, this is Alaric. Let's look at Carrick. He's a warlock. I haven't talked about warlocks as a character class, but it's a fighter magic user, right? So he's going to have some spells. He's got some of them memorized, some not. I should actually have that one memorized for this demo. Not that it matters much, but he's got all of his modifiers here. He's got his abilities, class abilities here. He's got an fighting ability of 4 because he is a warlock, so it's a 1-for-1. He's a level 4. It's 1-for-1 there. His favored weapons, this is actually, for a warlock, basically all weapons are favored, right? This is what he's got mastery of, so I'm actually going to make a note of that. He's actually selected mastery of the battle axe. And if you look at the battle axe, you've got one-handed and two-handed, so they both have to be set up. And it's a one-handed one, as you can see, +1. I'm sorry, I said one-handed. I meant to say it's a +1 weapon. So if I edit this, you can see, first of all, here, unlike with armor, where you just change the assigned armor class, with weapons, you give it an attack and a damage mod, so +1/+1. And then I also select weapon mastery. This one over here is Grand Mastery, which of course only fighters can have the Grand Master. But the system doesn't prevent you from selecting this. I can totally turn that on if I want. You can see that it's mutually exclusive, one or the other. I can also click that one again to turn it off entirely. But he has mastery of the battle axe, and that has to be set up on both of these, okay? Because they are considered separate items by the system, even though they're both the same battle axe. It just happens to be wielded one hand versus wielded two hands, okay? So very simple, +1 battle axe. Okay, so we've got that. He's got some arrows. Everything's good here. Other than that, I should just point out maybe that for a longbow composite, which allows you to use your strength damage modifier, you do have to do if you want it to all be built in, you have to add this variable to your damage roll at str, so that's your strength, dot DMG mod. This is case sensitive, so DMG capital M OD. And what that does is it then adds in your strength modifier to your D6. Melee weapons automatically get strength modifier, so you don't have to worry about that. Missile weapons automatically do not, except in the case of a composite longbow. You've just got to add that to the formula in order to make sure your damage modifier is being added. Okay, not much else to say there. He's got some spells. We'll talk about those as well. Acid Arrow requires, as an example, an attack roll, so we've got that set up. I talk about attack rolls and spells in the Magician how-to video, so we're not going to go into any more detail there. Magic Missile has no attack roll, so we don't have that checked. So we're going to be good there. Then we've got a couple of Moon Specters. Now this is just my take on a custom Spectre monster. So I think it's actually got fewer hit dice than a standard Spectre, because this one's got hit dice, a one hit die, yeah. So it's a weak Spectre, let's say. I don't even remember offhand what the real Spectre has, but I'm calling it a Moon Priest Spectre, and these are its abilities. And on a touch, it does have this Constitution Drain effect. So if it makes a successful touch, then the victim has to make a death save. So during the combat, hopefully we'll see that and be able to actually, test that out and see how it works. Other than that, yeah, they've got a touch. They make an attack with that, just like with a character would with their weapons. And it's got this whole thing built in. Monsters, of course, don't have a strength attack modifier, but it's built into the formula just in case you ever have a custom monster and you need to add something like that. You wouldn't actually be able to do this because there's no strength attribute, but you could replace that with an actual number if you wanted to. As a GM, players can't, obviously. GMs can do that. Same goes for an item. Now, if you've got an item, so like this is considered an item, right? A touch attack or a claw attack is considered an item. So you can actually give it attack modifiers and damage modifiers if you want. That's totally totally valid. I don't think there's anything here. Yeah, oh yeah, the roll formula, that's right. So if you wanted to give them a bonus for strength with this attack, you could just put it right here. Just replace this variable with a number like +1 or whatever. And then the item.attack mod does get pulled in from these things right here, and damage is automatically added if they're, assuming you do hit, it's added to your damage roll. So just a little bit about that. And just to note, I haven't talked about monsters in any of my videos yet. So for those of you who are setting up for the beta testing for the first time, you just want to know that setting up a monster, even if you're pulling it in from the compendium, you might need to do some customization or something like that if you want to set up different variables or give them bonuses or anything like that. Okay, that's enough about that. We're already quite a bit into this video. So we've got our stuff here. I don't know if you can tell, but the specters are kind of translucent. I've actually got them marked as invisible right now. So by the way, I'm right-clicking the token to bring up these extra little buttons around here. This bottom thing is their current hit points, so that's 4. Carrick has 22, Alaric has 7. So when I right-click this, you can see he's invisible. So they're not visible by the party. So we're going to say the party is exploring slowly, carefully around here. Alaric has already determined he doesn't believe there's any traps because he's our thief. Carrick, the warlock, is starting to step in, and suddenly I'm just going to go ahead and click both of these guys, and I'm going to click this, and now they suddenly appear, and you can see now they're more solid. These are features that are just built into Foundry, by the way. I'm not doing anything special with Hyperborea. Okay, but they suddenly appear. They know the party's there, so there's no chance of surprise. But the party has to roll surprise. Now, how do we do that? Actually, that's just a very simple D6 roll, and there's nothing you do from the character sheet to roll surprise. All I'm going to do is in the chat down here. By the way, you remember I saw dice tray, or I had dice tray module loaded? That gives me this little row of buttons down here. Now, honestly, I don't even use this, but I know my players like it. I just go /R D6, and then I hit enter. /R space D6. And now I've rolled, and I rolled a 6. So that's good, because 1 or 2 would indicate surprise. Anything else, not surprise. So my guys obviously were being super careful, and they're wary because they know they're in an ancient crypt, the Crypt of Delvernar, which is a dungeon that I created and ran for my players a few months back. And so these guys came in, they're not surprised. They were expecting to be attacked or ambushed, so there's no surprise, which means we can immediately go into action declaration. So here's where my party says, okay, well, let's see, Carrick, first thing he's going to do, he's going to cast a spell. So I'm going to go down here, I'm going to mouse over the spell book, and I'm going to select that. And now he's got magic selected for his action. Alaric, he's got a +1 bow. So he's just going to go straight to missile, just like that, okay? Now the specters, their attack is touch, so they have to go to melee. but it's really move plus melee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go move and I'm going to go melee just like that. And they're both going to do exactly the same thing. Whoops, I got to move this over just a little bit so I can see that there. There we go. Move plus melee. And you'll see I did it in that order so you can see move and melee. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter if you're just tracking it and you've as a GM, if a player does move, melee then move, well, you can take it in whatever order you want. I believe the basic rules say the move should be done before the melee because you're moving like to charge an enemy or something, and that's why I'm treating it that way. So we've got move plus melee on these guys, and then spell and missile, or magic and missile. So of course the order would be melee, missile, magic, and then move. And then move plus anything else after that. So this means that our players get to go first, and specifically Alaric gets to go first. So I'm just tracking it manually here. Those of you who know Foundry know that there's a combat tracker over here. To be honest, I don't use this, mostly because the initiative tracker doesn't have a group-based initiative built into it. Now, I've seen there's plugins available or modules available for that. I've personally never been able to get them to work right, so I don't use the combat tracker in Hyperborea. To me, that's just not a thing I need. I know based on the statuses of the tokens, I know what order things need to go in, and I know that the party won, so that the players get to go first because of the initiative that we didn't actually roll initiative yet. So initiative comes after action declaration. So now we're going to roll. So since I am the GM and the player both, I'm going to roll for the players first. So this first /R space D6 is for the players. And I rolled a 6. Awesome. Now I'm going to roll it for the monsters. And I got a tie. Hilarious. So I'm going to have to roll for the players again. Now, okay, so I think the rules actually allow things to be simultaneous. I don't like simultaneous. I'm actually going to consider this a reroll situation. So now the players have rolled a 3 and the monsters rolled a 1. So the players get to go first. Okay, so now we're on to actual resolving of action resolution. So melee would be first. Well, there is no straight up melee. Then missile would be next. So that's Alaric. So what's he going to do? He is going to, since he has line of sight on both of these baddies, he's going to target this guy. Now to target this Moon Spectre here, I can double right click. Oh, that didn't work. Is it double left click? Nope, that didn't work either. Well, tell you what, I'm going to hit the T key on my keyboard. I thought double right click would work, but it obviously didn't. Not sure why. That may be a setting I have set up. Anyways, I press T on my keyboard while my mouse is over a token to target it, and now Alaric has him targeted. So Alaric can now make the attack. So I'm going to open this, and I'm going the character sheet. Starting from the abilities tab, I'm going to go to combat. By the way, the combat tab is designed to have everything that you need for combat at your fingertips. Your ammunition count, armor, weapons, hit points, all that jazz. The only thing that's not here for spellcasters is spells. That is a separate tab because it's just too big. So, but he's going to attack with his short bow. So he's going to hit that D20 there. And you can see it's got D20 plus his fighting ability, which is 2, plus his dex attack mod built in, plus the item bonus, which is +1. That's in the item definition, so I'm going to hit roll. And then what you're going to see is, I'm just going to get that out of the way. So I rolled a 10. Now you can see down here, attack with short bow versus Moon Priest Spectre. That's because I had it targeted. So the system knows I'm attacking this guy, and it knows what his armor class is. And we know now that I missed. And you can look at the attack roll, and you can see exactly the formula that was used. And because I have the debug messages box checked in the system settings, remember I showed you that in the Hyperborea system settings, we actually see this message here. If I expand this out, you get this message here that says the attack formula, 1d20 plus fighting ability plus dex.attack mod. So 2 is his fighting ability, 1 is his attack mod, dexterity attack mod, plus item.attack mod, well that's what this +1 is, plus his mastery modification. Well, Alaric doesn't have weapon mastery, so that's a 0. Plus his situational modifier, which was in the dialog box, that's also a 0. So that's the correct formula, and then it takes, so you get the die roll of 10, and it adds all of his modifiers, 2, 1, and 1, so he gets a 14, and that is a miss, as the system has determined, okay? And if we look at the Moon Spectre, his armor class is 2, So if you do the math, yeah, a 14 would definitely be a miss for a third level thief type class. Okay, so that's it. He shot an arrow. Now the one thing, I'm going to decrement his ammunition. That's something that, this is an on your honor system. We don't track this automatically, but since I'm going to do it sort of quote unquote right, the player, should click that little minus button to decrement one arrow being used in a shot. And that's Alaric's turn. So the party going first, then Magic is next. So Carrick gets to go. Now Carrick, I think he's going to target this other guy. So once again, I'm going to mouse over this Moon Spectre over here. I'm going to press the T for target. On my keyboard, you can see he's targeted now. And now for Carrick, I'm going to actually use a spell. And I think I'm going to use the Acid Arrow spell because I don't know how powerful these monsters are. I, as the player of Carrick, don't know how powerful they are. And plus, this gives me an option to test out the attack roll. So you can see the attack roll is d20 plus my fighting ability plus my dex.attack mod, which is correct. For an Acid Arrow spell, you do have to make an attack roll, and it does apply your dexterity attack modifier. Now in this case, I'm pretty sure Carrick doesn't actually have an attack modifier. I think his dexterity results in a 0 mod, but it's rolled into the formula correctly, so that's what you want. So we've got him targeted. I'm going to hit cast. Now in this case, first of all, let's look at the spell. Acid Arrow, he had one memorized. You saw me click the plus before to make it memorized. So when you cast this spell, it does decrement the number memorized from 1 to 0. If this had been a 2, it would have gone down to 1. So that actually does work, which is awesome. Then we go over here and you can see, once again, you can see the Moon Spectre was targeted. It determined it was a hit. You can see this is your attack roll. Your d20, which is natural roll, was a 15, plus FA, plus Dex, attack mod, mastery, etc. Which ultimately, you can see his fighting ability is 4 and everything else is 0s. So 0 for his Dex, 0 for the mastery mod, 0 for the situational modifier, and there's no item, bonus here because it's a spell. So very simple. So I rolled a 19, it came out to an adjusted 19, which is a hit. The system automatically rolls damage for you based on what the item or spell is set up as. And here we have it set up as d4 plus 1 physical, which is right there, plus an additional 2d4 in the same round. Magicians, but not other sorcerers, get an additional bonus. By the way, you will have to add that manually. So the players need to do that if they're playing a magician class, not a magician subclass, not a warlock like I've got here. But if you're anything else, you would just want to say, okay, I'm going to add plus 1 or whatever I'm going to be adding here. So that would have to be done by the player. That's not something I can build into the compendium. It would take very complex logic to look at their class and pull that in. Now it's a possibility that I could do this in a later enhancement, but for right now, this is the way it is. So it rolled the damage and it rolled 9 points of damage, which is awesome. Now I know that my Spectre only has 4 hit points, so he's dead. So I'm going to just change that to a 0. I can even take the status here and mark him as dead, okay? And that's it. And I can untarget him because that's not needed anymore. He no longer gets to act, so there's only one Spectre left now. This guy's got a move and move and melee. So he's going to move up to Carrick and attempt to strike Carrick. Okay, so I'm going to target Carrick just like that. Again, mouse over the token, press the T, bring him up. He's going to attack with a touch. It's got my formula. I'm going to click roll. I'm going to get that out of the way. Attack with touch versus Carrick, and I hit. Look at that. I rolled a natural 17 plus my plus 7 on my fighting ability, which is probably wrong because I forgot to adjust that. Yep, look at that. It's a 1d8 monster. I pulled this in from the compendium as a 7-hit die Spectre and then modified it. I forgot to change his fighting ability down to a 1. That's my fault. No big deal. But we're just going to go with it. We're going to say I hit. I did 2 hit points of damage, so I can I right-click Carrick's token. I tap in here. I'm just going to press -2, enter. The system is smart enough to just take and subtract 2 from his original hit points. This is all built into Foundry. It's nothing I had to do for Hyperborea. Just right-click the token, click in here to highlight. You can do plus or minus, whatever the number, press enter, and it will adjust their current hit points as such. And if I double-click it, you can see under combat, 20 out of 22, which is exactly what we want. Okay, but now we also know that the Spectre's thing does constitution drain. So Carrick has to make a death save. So we're going to do that, and we might have 2d4 constitution drained if he fails the save. That's pretty painful. Now let's see, do I get any bonuses here on the death save? It doesn't appear so, any adjustments. So we're going to go ahead and do Carrick. We're going to do a death save, just like this. So I'm going to click death. You can see there's different types of mods that can be applied optionally, but we don't get, like, commonly the poison radiation modifier would be applied to a death save, but not in this case because it's more of a magic / undead effect. So we're just going to do a standard roll on the death save. And success, amazing. I made it exactly 15 out of 15, so nothing happened. If I had rolled a 14 or less, it would have been a fail, and then I would have to roll the, what was it, 2d4 on the con? 2d4 constitution, which is pretty painful. So thankfully, luckily, he only had a 25% chance of success, maybe a smidge over that, 15 or higher, 6 chances out of 20, so a little bit better than 25%. But he succeeded in his roll, which is fantastic. So Carrick does not suffer any constitution drain. And that's that. Now we move on to round 2. So first thing we do is the players can get rid of any of their existing statuses and redeclare, or they can also choose to they can also choose to keep their status the same. The GM can do that as well. I know, like, some GMs might want to manually go in if the players are forgetting or whatever. The GMs might want to remove that status, so then the players know they have to redo that action declaration. But you can manage that. It is going to have to be managed manually. But that's the way that works. And then you can just go to round 2 and do the next roll group initiative again after declaring actions. Resolve those actions. You can do a morale check as well. I'm running undead. They don't have a morale check, so no worries there. But otherwise, if I was running kobolds or something, yeah, I'd have to do a morale check after every round. And again, that's just a manual thing. You just roll your d12 and move on. Or is it d6? I forget offhand. But you do your morale check and then move to the next round if there's still combat. Okay, guys, that's all I've really got to say. I just wanted to do a quick demo of how I do combat in Hyperborea. It's fairly straightforward, but hopefully this will help you all getting started with the beta.